All right, what's up, guys? Brad here, and today we're going to be doing our Super Auto Pets tier list for the free-to-play expansion pack. And yeah, so let's jump into it here. All right, so basically, I'm going to go right down the list, and then I also have another one that has the foods as well. So we'll go through both of these. So the boar or the warthog, whatever it is. I think it's a solid minion. The biggest issue I have with it is that it's a tier 6. So that means it's really hard to actually use. A lot of the tier 6 guys, I feel like it's, you know, unless they're like one-ofs, pretty tough to get to like the higher tier levels, and they need to like take over. So I think it's a solid minion, but I think it could be better. So I'm going to put it in the B. It is very solid, but you know, I think that there are other guys that are better personally, and we'll get to those later on in the comparison sake of it, right? Like, anyways, so going to Ant, our first tier 1 minion, and this one didn't get any change to 2-1 stats, 2-1 for the buff. I think this is still one of the better minions that you get early on, and I actually am gonna say it's an A. So it can be played pretty well, and you can actually see it stick around a little bit. Usually, don't keep it a long game though. You know, it's just in the early. But usually, if you see an ant, you buy an ant. That's the mentality I have. Next, we get the squirrel. Squirrel before the patch was horrible, like basically unplayable. Now you're looking at a 2-5 body, and you reduce the cost of the food in your store by 1 every turn, and then it goes reduced by 2 and 3 later on. So you can get free food if it's tier 3. And Squirrel, honestly, I think it's for a food build, it's pretty solid. Like I actually think it's playable now, like worth messing around with. And I actually find myself buying the Squirrel more often than not. So that's just myself. Now going on to the duck. So duck had a nerf. It only gives +1 health now, instead of being +1 attack and health. And it still has the 1-2 body, so it is really getting kind of a big hit. So to me, honestly, duck's like near unplayable as of right now. What they should probably do is make the duck a 1-1 that gives +1/+1 to every shop. I think that could be a workaround, because then you're just guaranteed to have it be terrible, and you're still getting a decent buff for later on. Now we got the beaver, which when you sell it, it gets +1 health to 2 random pets. And I think the beaver's okay in some certain like instances, but overall, beaver's just kind of below average, I would say. You know, pretty mediocre at best. Badger, baby. So Badger has a newfound respect for me, and not that it's like this big galaxy brain mentality to have of putting the honey onto the Badger, but honey on Badger equals massive wins, by the way, if you have it in your last slot. So realistically though, I think there are counters to it. If you want to counter it, you want to play the crocodile, or you want to play something that can kind of snipe it in general. I think Badger is up here in the A tier though, like near top tier meta here. It's really solid. Bison. So Bison gets the +2/+2 at level 1 and if you have a level 3 minion. And I don't know what they did in this patch, but it seems like you're more apt to get level 3s now. Where before I never, like, not that I never would get them, but it was a lot rarer that I would get a level 3. Now I mean I could have 3 level 3s on my squad, right? So Bison, honestly, I think once again, A tier here. I think it's really solid. Honestly, even close to being S. There's a chance I could move it up. We'll see. We got the cat. Cat doubles the food effects, and cat is useful once again though. The only negative is that it is a tier 6. If it was higher, it would be even better. But as of right now, I think it's A. You know, I think it's really, really good. It's just that it's tier 6, you know. And I mean, you really only do need one of them if you're doing a food build. So there is a chance that cat could go to S as well. Blowfish is decent, I think. I think it does need a little bit of a buff in general. It's just that the effect isn't maybe as good as it could be. If it was doing plus maybe 3 damage to start, it'd be probably a tad better. Not that it's terrible right now, or maybe even just increasing the health by like 1 and reduce its attack. Because the attack doesn't really matter too much, so maybe make it like a 2-6 instead of a 3-5. That could be something that's decent for a workaround. You know, I think that there could be a little tweaking to it. I like to try to make the Blowfish work a lot. I think the Blowfish is a really fun pet to roll with, but overall, not one of my absolute favorites. Cow is going to be easy in the A here. They reduced its ability to a +1/+2 for the milk, and it's free. But if you decide to keep the cow instead of just selling it, it increases the efficiency of the milk every time you buy it. So it's interesting. I have yet to experiment with it, but I know that cow just in general, even just at level 1, is super playable. So as long as you have the space, there's no reason not to buy the cow. Crab, they changed from being at the start of the game, you just copy the health of the highest minion. Honestly, I think it's almost not better, but I like the ability that now we get, it's just like a set stat, so it's not like, you know, if they have a skunk on the board and they reduce the health of your highest minion, it doesn't completely screw your crab. You know, they could just be hitting the crab, which isn't as bad. So I think crab is pretty balanced, honestly. I like the crab a decent amount. So now we got the alligator, and at the start of the turn does, I believe, 7 damage, maybe 8. Could be wrong. I'm gonna check here quick. Go down here. Oh, okay, it's a crocodile, by the way, and it starts dealing 8 damage to the last minion. So, I don't think that's. I think that's pretty solid, and it's the perfect snipe for the honey badger. The badger plus honey synergy. So, because of that alone, I definitely think it's like solid. There is a chance it could go into A, but I think the snipes are usually not that great in general. Deer, I also think is pretty average tier here. When the meta was surrounded by the turkey, sheeps, and the flies and everything, the deer was actually making a decent use for the splash damage. So you were seeing a lot of use for splash in general. Right now, it seems like the splash stuff has been going away a little bit. And deer to me is still pretty solid. You know, maybe if it was swapped around, it would have been an A, but as of right now, no. But Dota used to be insane, and now it's pretty bad. I usually don't see any, if you're taking half, it starts at a 2-3. Taking half, so you're just giving 1 attack to the guy ahead of you. Even if you get it up to, like, let's say 10, you're only giving 5 attack. And then you gotta invest into it. I think they gotta rework around the dodo a little bit. It seems a little worse. The dog is turned from a 2-2 on turn 2 to 2-2 on turn 3. And I still think it's pretty darn good. I've had some really good uses of the dog later on. So I think dog is a lot more balanced than what it was. Before it was easy S tier. Dolphin started the battle, does 5 damage to the lowest health minion. I think it's pretty solid. Early game, well, mid game, once you get it, if you get it early on, it's useful because you can start sniping things. And if you're playing arena versus just the standard game, you can kind of know, hey, this guy's running scorpions. I'm gonna run this dolphin to snipe that scorpion. Pretty useful. It has its uses. It's not the greatest minion out there, but it's pretty good. Dragon also, honestly, good scaling, but tier 6 makes it kind of rough again. So, I think I'm gonna throw it here in the A. It is good. I haven't used it too much. I could have been using it a little bit better. And I just always seem to kind of stray away from it, because I don't have the space usually to buy sell with, like, I don't have 2 slots usually by the time Dragon comes around. Elephant, honestly, it has decent stat line, but being that it's dealing to 1 damage, it, you know, it synergizes with the Blowfish, it synergizes with the Peacock, it synergizes with the Camel, for example. There are some synergies, but overall, I don't think it's that great. I usually kind of avoid the elephant. I don't want to get stuck into the elephant, camel, rooster build. Like, that's not my ideal option. Cricket, honestly, definitely better than where it was at before. Being a 1-2 with the 1-1 body afterwards, and the fact that Horse got a little bit of a buff makes it even better. So I think it's pretty solid. And also because the Horse got a buff, Sheep also got a little bit of a buff. And I think Sheep's decent. You know, for early game, if you can get a Sheep, I'd throw it in, you know, for the squad a little bit. Fish, also pretty standard here. Fish is usually a pretty solid buy early on. You know, if you try to get that +1/+1 to the board. Doesn't stick around usually too much, but something. Peacock, or Flamingo, excuse me. I don't know why I said Peacock. Flamingo, I think it's in the C. It's tough. I rarely use the Flamingo. And you gotta think, it's like a 4 cost salad. So, yeah, not my favorite. Yes, it's directed. You could choose what minions get the buff, but I don't think it's worth 4 gold. You're like essentially, you know, making it 25% more just to choose what you want. Not a huge fan. Fly, I actually think it's pretty balanced now. It was overpowered, and I like it. I think it's still very useful, but it's pretty balanced, I would say. Giraffe now got buffed up. I think it's a 2/5 now. And before, it was a 1/3. And Giraffe was like near unplayable because it was so bad. But I don't mind it, you know, especially being able to give it +1 stats to minion in front of it, and then you could do it to 2 minions in front. You get +1/+1. So it still has some scaling effects. It's like the early scaling, right? Usually you drop the Giraffe once you get to, say, Monkey or something, but that scales a little bit better. But I think Giraffe has a better place now. I think it's pretty solid. Gorilla. I'm gonna put Gorilla in the B tier as well. So the reason is it's in the tier 6, right? So it has the disadvantage where it's super powerful. It's a really good, you know, pet. But the negative is that by that point, usually I try to like. It seems like when I win, it's like by turn 14 or earlier, and it's. I mean, I have like 1 or 2 turns of the Gorilla at most if I'm running it. I've had 1 game where I ran a Gorilla for a good chunk, and I ended up getting it to tier 2. And the Gorilla was honestly like my power boy. So he is really powerful. It's just like, it's so late game. Like super hardcore late game. Hedgehog. One of the OG's like favorites right now. Like, I don't know why I said OG. It's not an OG. But one of the favorites right now is the Hedgehog builds. It's super fun, and I've been trying to make it work. It is decent if you can get it up, but it's so situational. Like, you have to really try and get very lucky in order for it to work. Now, in my opinion, I don't think it's worth attempting to make it work like all the time. It's just too tough. So Hedgehog to me goes in the C. I would like to see a tiny bit of a buff to it. You know, even though it's going to push the Hedgehog meta into top tier. But Hippo here is going to be my first S tier. This is a guy that, honestly, if it gets out of control early, it's game over. You're going to basically win. It's very easy to win with the Hippo. You can get something like Hippo Monkey, or anything that buffs it. You start doing a food build in general. Hippo is going to be insane. So Hippo, I think, is pretty good. Horus, so Horus used to be D. I think it's up to C now. So it's still not amazing, but I do find myself trying to run with the Horus a little bit more because I never played it before. Now it's like actually somewhat playable. So I'm like, all right, run the Horus. So I'm finding myself run with Cricket more, I'm finding myself run with a few things, and then I usually dump the horse about mid-game, or even like by turn, when I hit like tier 3, usually is right around when I'm like, alright, time to transition out of this horse stuff. So I like it. Pretty solid. Kangaroo, Kangaroo can definitely start sweeping things early on, but having that 1-2 body to start with makes it a little rough. You need to have 2 guys. It can be absolutely insane, but you know, same time, it is a 1-2 body. So if it gets sniped, it's kind of over. All right, we have the. This is a cheetah or a leopard. I don't even know what it's considered. I'm gonna look and see what it's considered. It's a leopard, so it does half its damage. So when it starts at 10, so it's doing 5 damage, something random. But basically like a dolphin, but you know, it gets better as you start buffing it up more and more. And for myself, I don't run with the cheetah too often. I do like the cheetah a lot. I think it's fun, but because it's at tier 6 again, like I said, I think it's average. You know, it can get out of control, but it usually doesn't, what I've noticed. Mammoth, same kind of thing. It's, I think, really solid, especially if you put a mushroom on it, which is why I'm going to put it into the A tier. It has more uses. I think you just get it at level 1, and you're given +4/+4 to the board when it dies. It's a decent body. Monkey is still absolutely insane. They like try to like change it up a little bit to make it, give him +3/+3. Is at tier 5, I believe now. But the thing is, if it's tier 5, you only need 1 of it, and it just starts scaling insane amounts. So if you get an early monkey, you basically win. Anyways, Mosquito, another tier 1. One of the last tier 1s I believe we have left, along with the Otter. Mosquito, yes, Mosquito's decent, but I still think that they need to tweak it a little bit. The problem is Mosquito's good at like turn 1 and 2, and then it instantly drops off. It's just horrible. So to me, what they need to do is, instead of making it where before it was you combine it at level 2, it does 2 damage to something. It should have been doing 3 damage if they were to keep it that way. Now they made it to where if it's level 2, it does 1 damage to 2 different guys. I think it should be doing 3 damage to 2 different guys, because it takes 3 minions to do it. Right? It makes more sense. So that's just me. I think it should be as many, you know, mosquitoes you pump into it. That's how much damage it should be pumping out when it levels up. So keep it the same stat line. I think that would be good. And I don't think it's really making it overpowered. Otter, it's kind of same thing. It's decent. It's okay. It's scalar. It's alright. Yes, when it gets a lot higher level, it's nice, but I usually don't run it too often. Ox, I really like the Ox actually, but it's just weak. It seems like it's a tough one to, you know, get going. The positive though is if you can get something going in the front of it, if you can get the flamingo going and you pill it, you can get that early watermelon going, which can be pretty useful early on. So I think Ox is pretty balanced. Parrot, I'm gonna be honest, I think Parrot's like up here. Parrot's been showing up a lot more in my games. And I never used it until this patch really came out, and I am just kicking butt with the Parrot. So if you have the opportunity to buy it and test it out, I find it to be very, very useful. I'm trying to think of what was the build that I last used, because the last thing I used was actually pretty fun. It might have been man, I can't even remember right now. It might have been even just like a snake or oh, it was a skunk. That's what it was. Anyways, simple enough. So Parrot definitely is up here. Like Parrot could even be S tier because it can utilize some of the higher guys. Peacock, I think Peacock is decent. I think Peacock is about average at best. Because yes, it has. I think it has a decent stat line. That's a big thing. And if you can get it to have a little bit more strength, like, you know, attack in general, it's good. The negative is it's not the greatest late game. So mid and early game, it scales pretty well, but then you kind of want to transition out of it unless you're going to sweep early and get it going on, you know, and get like a 10-11 win run. that's when you're probably looking at Peacock, probably decent. I mean, Penguin, I'm gonna be honest, I think Penguin's also S tier. So, I don't know if other people think this, but the fact, like, these mass scaling guys, in my opinion, are what win you games. If you can get something going very early on to scale nonstop, that's what wins you stuff. So, you know, Penguin, it has terrible body, but let me tell you, if you can get, you know, 3 level 2s, you just start scaling, and then you have a monkey also on the board, it's like game over. You know, you're gonna be outscaling most people in general. Pig, oh, this is another level 1. Pig, I also think is pretty much C tier. So got the buy sell. You're really not losing too much by buying it, but I almost rarely ever buy the pig. Not my favorite. Rabbit's actually a lot better now that it buffs itself. So, food meta, I was in a bit of a spot where I was constantly buying stuff for the food, and now I don't know. It's slowed down a little bit. I haven't been buying food as much as before, but it's still really powerful. Rat used to be actually a lot better, I think. I feel like for some reason it's gotten worse. I was really intrigued at first when they made the change of, it was like a 1/1, and it would deal like 3 damage to the guy in the back or something. Something weird like that. Thought it was interesting, but I think Rat's like okay. Like honestly, early on, I think people don't give Rat enough of a chance because it has a downside. But it's like if you're gonna lose that game, you're probably gonna lose it anyways. Because it's giving you a 4/5 body at like on the second turn without buffing it or anything, so it's pretty good. Next, Rhino. Rhino can take off, but it rarely takes off, I feel. It has, when the Rooster meta was going on, a lot more. But Rooster meta's kind of fallen off a bit, with it being only half the Rooster Turkey meta, so yeah. Same thing here with the Rooster. I think it's kind of, you know, it's still pretty solid, but it's mediocre. You know, you're not seeing it as much, so I think it's pretty average. Scorpion, I honestly think it's still pretty much S tier here, being that when it comes out here, unless they're gonna snipe it, you're going to essentially one-shot something, and usually a lot of people run it first or second, depending on whatever their mentality is, and because a lot of people run their big strong guys right at the front. And then you put your little Scorpion, as long as they have melon, boom, you smash into it and you kill it. You can buff that Scorpion up, get it into like a 20-ish health range or higher. There's a pretty good chance that it can actually survive and kill 2 guys for 1 shot. So Scorpion, I think, is insane. Seal, I'm gonna be honest, Seal I've rarely gotten to work well. And because of that, it's going down to C. It's okay. I think that there is a chance, but not that great. Shark, I also think is kind of down here as well. Like, it just seems like there's better things to do. There's just not enough board in order to develop the Shark compared to, like, if you're running the Rooster Turkey combination, right? Usually you're also running something else with it. So you might be running, like, a Scorpion to try to snipe something. And then you've got behind that you got the Rooster going, and then behind that you got the Turkey going, and then maybe behind that you got the Fly, and then you might even have like a Snake somewhere or something. I don't know. There's like a million different things, but sometimes it gets overwhelming, and I just feel like Shark, I don't usually run it for whatever reason. Lobster, I think, is about as bad as it gets. They got to rework this guy here. These down here definitely need to be fixed as of right now. I've tried them a few times. It just doesn't, it's not my favorite. Doesn't seem that great. Skunk, also going to be S tier, mainly because of what the strategy that I set up here is. Skunk completely counters your Hippo, your Monkey, and your Penguin synergy builds. So yes, you might need to have 2 Skunks going, but if you can knock down their health by 33% just at level 1, there's a chance that you can make it to where your guy kills that big boy in 1 shot instead. Snail, I actually think, is about as balanced as you can get it. You almost never run the Snail itself, you're just buying it for the buff. So that's why I kind of like it. Snake, I also think is absolutely nutty, but and it could be S tier for how much I use it, but usually not. It could snipe a lot of things. It can get out of hand with the tiger. It can get out of hand with a lot of things, especially when it levels up to doing 10 damage per hit. So, nuts. Spider, I used to really like the spider a lot, and now I don't really run the spider almost at all. It's not really that great. Like, the best option you pull is the turtle, and half the time I feel like I get the snail. So the swan is easily the best tier 2 guy, and swan just builds the economy to where I feel like everybody buys swan. I think they also need to rework the swan a little bit to make him less useful. I love the swan, don't get me wrong, but I think his body should be even smaller. And this is after they nerfed him a little bit. They reduced his health by 1. So I think they should do something else here again too. Tiger also, I think, is absolutely insane. Being able to double your effect of your skunk, your snake. You double the effect of the hippo. It gets really out of hand real quick. So that's why it's up there. Turkey is still really solid, even though they reduce the effectiveness of the rooster, but it buffs everything. So it buffs the honey, it buffs up the flies, it buffs up the deer's bus, it buffs up everything. And a +3/+3 buff, like at level 1, instantly makes the horse like completely not viable anymore, because you could have a level 3 horse, you sell that for a turkey for free, a free exchange, and you're just getting +3 health every time instead. So there's no reason to run the horse late game, unless you're just specifically going for an achievement. That's why I think the turkey goes up here. Turtle, also an easy way to get you an early watermelon, and watermelon solid, especially early game. It counters some stuff as well, like obviously an expansion pack. This is we're looking at the free to play, but expansion, there's a lot of stuff that gives you a weakness or whatever, like the bat, and turtle counters that. But turtle just in general, I think is pretty solid. Early game that is. It's worse late game. So Camel, I think, is honestly kind of balanced. It doesn't blow me away, but I run it from time to time. Whale, I really don't run too much, but I like the stat line that it has. And, it has different synergies, with the deer, with the turtle, honestly, isn't that great unless you buff it up. Be decent. The rooster, you have different synergies that you can get with the whale. It's just I don't run it too often. And worm, I still think, is pretty meh. So overall, this is basically what it looks like for me. Up here, they're not in like order of their tiers, obviously, but yeah, I think it's pretty fair ratings in general. So let's go into the food now. Apple is about mediocre as possible. It's not really amazing, but it's okay. Honey, we put it up here in A. Honey with the badger in general makes it super powerful. And on top of that, some of the builds don't mind it. Early game, I think it is the best early game food that you can get until you get to the garlic or onion, whatever the hell is. That's myself. Cupcake, I do actually value the cupcake a little bit more than I think people would. So here's the thing: if you're going early on, right? Say you're, let's just use an example. You're going for that perfect run, 10 wins in 10 runs, right? So the cupcake is your best friend, because let me tell you, it's the best bang for your buck for value, and a lot of people will have trouble. Yes, it doesn't scale you, and you're making yourself inevitably way worse than if you were to buy even the apple. But for the time being, it's a way for you to scale up and get those early wins. So that's why I like it. Meat, I think it's about as average as it gets. I like meat, but not anything wild. Pill also I think is pretty average. You don't have too many things you want to hit with other than the ant and the flamingo. So to me, yes, I know that there is a synergy with like the sheep. There's some way to get like a tier 3 sheep or something, where if you pill it at a level 2, you can combine the two and it spawns, something like that, but I've never done that. I don't know too much about it. Garlic, I think, is easily the first S here. You're using it all the time, which is why it's getting up here in S. I use the garlic all the way to the late game constantly. Salad, I think, is also about as average as it comes, being that it gets +2, well, +1 to 2 guys, so it's just straight up better than the apple. But going to 2 different guys, maybe you don't want to hit something specifically, so it turns to negative. The can also, I think it's good. I've found myself using it less and less nowadays, but it's still really good. Give +2/+1. Pear also up here in A. Being some of the best. Give him +2/+2 to a designated guy, one of your favorites to land on a food build. Chili, as I said, used to be really good when the rooster was a thing. Well, was more of a thing than it is now, but still solid. You know, I'd still run it. The chocolate bar, candy bar, whatever it is, can't remember exactly what it's named. Probably one of the best ones that you can get. So. Easily S. Sushi is just better than the salad. Give them basically +3/+3. Give them 1 to all different guys. Watermelon, also amazing. Blocking 20 damage. The mushroom has its uses. So it's very specific. I think it's harder to use though than the other food. So to myself, you're more apt to not use the mushroom than you are, but when it does have its uses, that's when you're like, oh, look at this. Mushroom. Working out great. Pizza, also really solid, and the steak. You know, I think that this is basically what it looks like, right? I don't really think there's anything that's absolutely terrible that I would never buy or anything, but this is essentially what it looks like to me. You know, giving +2/+2 to 2 random guys is just the best one of these between the random, you know, without choosing. And then the steak giving +20 damage. You can make your penguin actually useful. You can make your monkey actually useful to actually try to kill something. So that's why I usually run the steak a decent amount. Being able to run on one of those small guys to kill something works out well. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think. They're the best pets, best food, and everything. And I will see you in the next video.